Hi, welcome back to the Scent Advocate. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit more about a fragrance I discussed in a video last night. And the reason I'm doing that is because I made a mistake. I made a huge mistake. And I want to correct that mistake and talk a little bit more about the entire vintage fragrance experience that I've had over the last 24 hours. It has been a roller coaster. I will get into that experience right after I tell you what tonight's beverage is. You know it's coffee. You know it. And it's in my favorite Big Sky Country Montana mug. So let me tell you my story. Yesterday, I received my very first vintage fragrance. Now, this is a real vintage fragrance, right? This is not a modern version or a current release of a fragrance that's been around for 100 years. No. This fragrance was actually sold in like 1987, I believe. And it was one very near and dear to my heart. I wore it in high school. It was definitely way too old for me. I did not care. It was amazing. And that scent memory was so strong and so special to me that I wanted it back. And so for years, I'd contemplated getting a vintage bottle of this fragrance. And I was always afraid because to me, it's like the ultimate blind buy, right? I didn't want to buy a fragrance that had been opened and used. I wanted something new in a box. And if it's new in a box, even the seller can't necessarily vouch for how well it's been stored over the course of 30 plus years in this case. And so I took a big chance and I ended up receiving the fragrance yesterday. I opened it and here it is. It is Fendi. I opened it and I was immediately hit with a shocking alcohol smack in the face. Very different from any new fragrance I've opened in recent times. I don't ever remember smelling anything like that. It was an alcohol smell that was almost like a fume, and not horrible, but definitely not pleasant. Less than ideal for sure. But it didn't smell bad or sour or like it had turned or anything. It was just a lot of alcohol, kind of drowning out the underlying fragrance. This is a splash bottle, okay? This is how I remember it. This was not uncommon back in the 80s when I wore this, but the seller was wonderful. Gave me a little syringe and an atomizer to decant it into. So I did that. And as I'm doing all that, I'm starting to get the smell. And it wasn't the same. And that set me off. I was so disappointed. And what was especially hard was this was a gift from my husband. And it meant a lot to me, therefore it meant a lot to him. And I was feeling really guilty about not being pleased with the result. Now, it smelled fine. It smelled pretty, but it wasn't the Fendi I remembered. That was a very distinct fragrance, and this didn't even come close. So I made the video, and, I was visibly disappointed, right? What a problem to have, right? There are so many significant, difficult challenges any of us could have, other people have, so many more significant things to worry about. But, the young person in me who was looking forward to this felt let down. So just disappointed. Made the video, went to bed, went to work today, talking to a friend at work about it, and I told her, let me show you the fragrance. And so pulled it out and I sprayed it for her. And there it was. It was Fendi. Exactly as I remembered it. What happened? The only thing I could think of is aeration. That's it. Very likely this fragrance had been sitting in the box for 30 plus years. And I think, like wine, aerating fragrance might be important sometimes. Do not go around trying to aerate your fragrances because I said this, okay? Please look into it some more. But that's the only possible difference between last night and today that I can think of, other than body chemistry, but I don't think so. It even smelled different on paper. So I think the aerating changed things, like with wine, right? You pick up different notes in the wine after it's been aerated. That's why you decant it. That's why you swirl it around in the glass. Maybe there's something to that with fragrance. Maybe it's a complex liquid that develops as it's exposed to air. Maybe the release of that alcohol when opened does something to the fragrance. And so this is it. This is what I remember. I am over the moon pleased because yesterday I had concluded that I would never buy another vintage fragrance. I was wrong. And this has been an education, a roller coaster of an education. But I am glad I did it, and I would do it again. I'm not positive with what, but I would do it again. Let me tell you just a little bit about this fragrance, just so you know. This is Fendi, a sheep floral sheep, I should say. This is an EDT. The vintage is somewhere between 1987 and 1991. This is a 50 mil, and it's just going to depend on the price. You know, it's a market price for something like this. The notes in this are coriander, cardamom, rosewood, mandarin, carnation, rose, geranium, lily of the valley, oak moss, sandalwood, patchouli, etc. It's rich, it's dark, it's an 80s powerhouse, exactly what you'd expect, but it has its own almost a wet tobacco thing going on in there. It's got aldehydes, but not like you think. They're vintage aldehydes. They just give it a little bit of a lift up from that darkness. I think what makes this so special too is the chemical composition is probably older, in that it's not been some of the ingredients have not been substituted. That's what I'm trying to say. So like the oak moss is probably real oak moss. I think that matters. I think that makes a big difference. And I don't know what other ingredients, are probably old school, older versions of them, maybe a little bit more authentic or tied directly to the plant or flower, I guess. I don't know, but I do think that may have something to do with it. The real ingredients as opposed to perhaps synthetic substitutes resulting from modern regulation of perfumery. So this is amazing. It is just what I wanted. Why was it different yesterday from today? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. I think it has to do with aerating. I think that has something to do with it, but I'm no expert. So let me know in the comments. So where does this leave me? Well, it leaves me open to perhaps another vintage fragrance or two. Now, I have some modern versions, or recent purchases, I should say, recent purchases of vintage perfumes where they smell so different to me. I would really love a vintage version from years ago, sold originally years ago. One in particular, Youth Dew by Estee Lauder. My grandmother used to wear this, loved my grandmother, the same Gram who used to wear, you know, Chanel number 5 and some of the others that I loved. Oh gosh, Cabochard. She would wear that. She was amazing and she always smelled incredible. And this was one that I loved especially. So of course I always keep it in my collection. What's the problem? Doesn't smell the same to me. Maybe it's me. I don't know if this has been reformulated. All I can tell you is it smells different to me, remarkably so, a shadow of what I remember. There's a hint, there's a leaning in that direction, but it's real subtle. This is very, it smells transparent to me relative to the Youth Dew I remember years ago. And again, it could be me. I don't know if this has been reformulated, but for what it's worth, this is 67 mil. It's an EDP, so this is supposed to be strong. 1953 original release. I got this about 2 years ago. Spent about $50 on it. And the nose behind this is Josephine Catapano. So this is spices, aldehydes, narcissus, lavender, orange, peach, cinnamon, rose, jasmine, ylang ylang, lily of the valley, orchid incense, oak moss, patchouli, etc. Almost like a chocolate patchouli meets Coca-Cola and perfume. Take that and put it into a perfume, and that's what this was. So rich, so decadent, like dessert you could wear, but it didn't smell like gourmand or anything like that. It wasn't like that. It was just so fabulous. Oh, just wonderful. You wanted to just have it all over you, and you could, because it used to come in a bath oil. They had these gift sets you could get. It was like bath oil and body lotion and dusting powder and, you know, body wash for the, you know, and they had like soap for your face and all that. It was fantastic, and it all smelled amazing. I would like that again. And some of you gave me some feedback, right? You said, sometimes, you know, the memory has to just be a memory. You can't step in the same river twice. I know. But when it comes to fragrance, I don't know. I may have to chase this one too. Talk me out of it, maybe. Or don't. Tell me why it's a good idea. Have you gotten yourself a vintage version of this? And if so, how did it go? Let me know in the comments. Another that I would strongly consider going after if I were to go vintage shopping again would be Aromatics Elixir by Clinique. Loved this one. My other grandmother, my dad's mom, used to wear this. And this is a very, very, very different smelling fragrance to me now. Again, I can't say whether it's been reformulated, but this smells vastly different. This has, it smells flabby to me compared to the original. It's, yeah, flabby, like blah. And this was so incredible. Years ago, this was like, whoa, what are you wearing? That's amazing stuff. Where is the person who's wearing it? Like, you wanted to hunt that person down and just be around them, because this was a joy. And this one isn't bad. It's just not even close. No. So I would love to get my hands on a 1980s version of this. By the way, this is a floral sheep. It's 44 mil, 1971 release date. I paid about $50 for this. It is a parfum. The nose behind this is Bernard Chant. The notes are, you know, chamomile, aldehydes, clary sage, bergamot, carnation, rose, ylang ylang, noticing the repetitive carnation note in these, by the way. Oak moss, patchouli, a lot of that too, both of those. Sandalwood, musk, vetiver. Um, really dynamic, big, sorry, all the smelling stuff is getting my nose a little itchy, but it's missing what it had. The spine, I feel, is gone. The aldehydes, I'm not getting them. The lift that one would get that would give this more, you know, backbone, I guess, is not in there. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for what it was. Will it break my heart if I don't ever get it? No, but it would be nice. So tell me what you think about Aromatics Elixir. Have you gotten yourself a either a decant or a full bottle that is a vintage version? Let me know in the comments. Another one that I might be interested in getting a vintage version of is Jean-Louis Scherer. Jean-Louis Scherer. I'm probably mispronouncing that. There you go. Very Art Deco looking bottle, don't you think? Very cool stuff. This one I did not have a relationship with in my youth. I smelled this for the first time about a year ago. But I feel like there's got to be something amazing about an older version of it. The notes in this are aldehydes, violet, cassia, hyacinth, carnation again, jasmine, rose, sandalwood, amber, musk, civet, oak moss, vetiver, gardenia, orris, cedar. I get a lot of vetiver in this and almost a resinous or balsamic thing going on. The carnation is in there. And I think because carnation is so special to me and I can detect it in this, that's why I want to see if maybe a vintage version would be even better. This is really nice. I don't feel the need to necessarily go vintage on this. I'm just curious. So with this one, I would be satisfied with a decant of a vintage version, provided there's a difference. Again, with all of these, I repeat, I do not know that there is any difference whatsoever in the formulation. Those that smell different to me, not this one, right? Because I just got this one. I had never smelled it before I got this about a year or so ago. Those that smell different to me, it could be because of me. I don't know for sure, just to be clear. But I would say perhaps an earlier release, an older bottle. How about that? An older bottle. Have you experienced that? If so, do you think it's worth getting? Let me know in the comments. This is really nice. The oak moss in this comes right out. And with that vetiver, and I think the resins are probably closer tied to the cedar. And then that beautiful carnation, kind of a peppery note. Very, very beautiful. This may not need an older version or an older bottle. This might just be perfect as it is. This could be. Let me know what you know about this in the comments, please. Then another one I want to talk about that I am a little bit interested in, but I don't know that I need to go vintage, which I think is the other end of the spectrum, is the Cabochard. So my mother and my grandmother were big fans, and this to me, I just got this also about a year or so ago. This smells great as it is to me. Like, I don't feel this smells any different from the one I remember my mother wearing years ago. If it's not identical, it comes real close for me. So this would be one, kind of flying in the face of the experience I'm having with this, right? This, it might be fun to get a decant of a vintage version if there is any such thing as a vintage version, assuming there's been a reformulation, or an older bottle would smell differently. But this smells great the way it is to me. So this is an EDP. It is 100 mil. I paid a whopping $15 for it. Can you believe? 1959 release. Again, Bernard Chant. The usual suspects in the formulation. We've got aldehydes, the note formulation, I have to say. Aldehyde, sage, spices, tarragon. Oh gosh, this one is tricky. It's asafoetida. Terrible, terrible pronunciation. I apologize. I think it's a type of onion. Weird, right? Who cares? It works. Ylang ylang, orris, rose, jasmine, oak moss, vetiver, patchouli, sandalwood, musk, amber, coconut, and tobacco. This is so nice. I love it. And it makes me think a little bit of this. If you like this, this is Roche's Femme. You'll probably like this. And if you like those, you'll probably like Belle Versailles, and these to me smell really, I'm not inclined to go for an older bottle of this. This to me gives me what I need from Belle Versailles. This to me gives me what I need. Now, I did get a vintage decant of this, and it was beautiful, but it wasn't that different. So I would not go for a vintage bottle. This still, to me, packs one heck of a punch. Oh, it's yummy. It's got some cumin in there, though. So if you don't like cumin, if you get armpit from cumin, not for you. I love this. I don't get armpit, but I get the cumin. And to me, it just comes together in the most sexy, vintage, luscious, amazing. It's an experience, right? This is not a fragrance. This is an experience. I will wear this when I am home just doing my thing. I want to live in this. Now, this, I'm a little hesitant, same with this, to go, into a crowded space. I overspray this because I just cannot get enough. And it's not for everyone. I think it should be, but it's not. And I recognize that. So I will just bathe in this, right, when I'm home. I love it so much. This is so comforting, so wonderful, makes me feel so sexy, so chic, so alive. I just love being in my skin when I wear this. And, that could be running errands, gardening, whatever. I'm loving it, especially on the weekends when I'm doing that, or if I take a day off. Same sort of thing with this. I don't get the cumin out of this, but I get that kind of vintage 80s, strong woman thing going on, fabulous. No need to get a vintage bottle, I don't think. But let me know in the comments. Do you think there's a difference in an older version or an older bottle of this as opposed to something that, I bought fresh a year ago? One of you did suggest when I got my bottle of Habanita that I should try an older or a vintage decant at least, and I did. And to me, it was more concentrated. It was stronger, more beautiful, not vastly different. It was just more, right? So imagine the experience you would have with like an extrait version of a fragrance. That's what I got from the Habanita decant vintage version. Anyway, let me know what you think of this. My apologies, sincerely, if I came off yesterday as too disappointed. I was just kind of caught up in my feelings, and I probably didn't show up very well. I'm sorry. But I'm feeling better today. And let me know what you think. I feel kind of renewed in the possibility that vintage, when very, very carefully selected, um, is not necessarily off the table. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. As always, I love your comments. Please leave me as many as you like. I love hearing what you have to say, reading what you have to say, getting your advice. And if you're not yet a subscriber, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.